Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. Eileen, I have a question for you. Just you. Have you watched My Cousin Vinny yet? Have you? It's absolutely a prerequisite. And I know you hadn't. And I know you were going to. And we've given you plenty of time. We really should. It's really, really good. Hi, Fozzie's Pants. Lacey. All right. Guys, just so you know, I had a talk with my boss today, and they're going to do better. Let's just skip that part. You go to court, a violent court. Michael. 2 Utes, yes, Fozzie. Yay, tea. Thank you. I gave you what I got. They're going to have a meeting and then it'll get better. I feel like I feel like the I feel like the mother on the stand. It wasn't their fault. They didn't understand. You know, there was a time where they were good. It's just they just didn't know what was going on. Everything will get better.
Will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yay, Fozzie.
Lieutenant Lisa Colette, from the Sheriff's Office. I'm a and
I act like a lieutenant all the time.
were you the county and 8 south of the county, just to use that as an
Mr. Baggins, I am so proud of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maria.
example. And the and a law enforcement.
So it's your actual birthday. You weren't just Lord of the Ringsing me. Happy birthday. Oh man, you're gonna have a good day today. Oh man, I hope you do something really good today. There's no sound. Thanks, Sandra.
Academy. I attend law enforcement job. You have a
Lisa Colette.
And then there was sound.
And Sergeant Colette, if you'll raise your right hand for me, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before this court be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes, ma'am.
All right, you go ahead and lower your hand and have a seat. And will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Lieutenant Lisa Colette with the Hall County Sheriff's Office. I'm a patrol watch commander currently
Okay,
under the command of Captain Mount.
all right. And how long have you been working for the Hall County Sheriff's Office?
Since 2012,
And you said right now you're a lieutenant. What was your title or duties back in April of 2023?
I was a patrol sergeant. I believe I may have been an acting lieutenant. I tried to look up the dates last night.
Okay,
I think I was already an acting lieutenant, but formerly sergeant, patrol sergeant.
okay. And were you on like patrol at the time, or how did that work if you were a sergeant or an acting lieutenant?
So all of our patrol watches are made up of one lieutenant, two sergeants, and each sergeant has a number of officers that work for them. Let's just say 8 north of the county and 8 south of the county, just to use that as an example. And the sergeants supervise either the north end of the county or the south end of the county. And then the watch commander would be a lieutenant. So that day I was working for a different shift for a different supervisor covering for them. And I was supervising the south end of the county.
And so that wasn't your normal folks that you would supervise?
No, ma'am.
And how long have you been a law enforcement officer total?
This is my 30th year.
Okay. And are you post-certified?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you please explain to the jury what that means?
The state of Georgia requires us to attend a law enforcement academy.
Fozzie will tell you.
I attended at the end of
Youth?
1994 and
You mean
graduated in
youth?
95. And that's considered your mandate certification. And then once you get a law enforcement job, you have either a chief or a sheriff that confirms with the state of Georgia that they have placed you in that employment position. And then you're considered certified with the state of Georgia as a law enforcement officer.
Okay. And over the course of your time as a law enforcement officer, not asking for a specific number, I'm just asking approximately how many times would you say you've had to respond out to domestic type incidents?
Hundreds between here and my
30.
previous agency.
Okay. And back on this April 15th, 2023 date, it's actually April 16th, it ended up being April 16th. Did you have occasion to start investigating a case involving Ronald Henson?
Yes, ma'am. The sergeant of the Flowery Branch Police Department contacted me and advised that he had a subject that lived in his jurisdiction that was trying to figure out how to get in contact, a welfare check on her juvenile son that was staying on the north end of the county.
And was the juvenile son Killian Henson?
Yes.
Okay.
She stated that there had been some type of violent domestic assault that had occurred at the residence the night before involving the roommate, the girlfriend, and her son, and that both of the other parties had been injured, and that officer had responded this morning and there was an incident report done about it, and she wanted to know that her son was safe and how to go about getting her son.
And who was that officer that responded in the morning that you're speaking of?
Then Deputy Truslow.
Okay, is that Mark Truslow or Truslow?
Yes.
Now, you said that normally you don't supervise him. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do you know what the extent of his involvement was in this case initially?
Initially, I did not know very much other than what my complainant, Killian's mom, had requested. I did pull up the call notes to see what had gone on earlier in the morning and tried to reach out to him, and at some point spoke to him while continuing the interview with her and gathered some information about what the call that he had gone on earlier that morning that sustained what she was saying. There was something going on at the residence, and she was concerned about Killian.
And so when you started doing all of that, did you direct him to take additional actions, or how did you go about that?
So while communicating with him and Deputy Truslow and my caller, Killian's mom, and the father, Mr. Henson, there was a lot of back and forth about where the child was, who the child was supposed to stay with. There was a lot of confusion about what had or hadn't gone on earlier that morning or the night before. In speaking to all of the parties, it just consistently seemed that there were some missing links. And in speaking directly to Deputy Truslow, he had confirmed that he had been out there that morning and that there was no assault as my caller was describing, and that she was making it up, and that the child wasn't involved in anything. And there was no domestic violence incident that had occurred, and the child was safe.
If marriages had that, there would be no divorce. We should start working on that. Maria, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you later get information that maybe it was not accurate?
I did. While I was interviewing her, I was trying to contact DFACS, and it was on a weekend, I believe, a Saturday or a Sunday. I think a Saturday. It was hard to get in touch with anybody through our office or Cherokee County to determine where the child should be. One of the parties was saying that the child was not supposed to be at this place, and the other party was saying that. So we were trying to determine where he needed to be, who had custody of him, and exactly what had happened the night before. While I was interviewing her, she continued to get phone calls from Mr. Henson's roommate, girlfriend. And I could actually hear her speaking.
Your Honor, I'm going to object just in case we're about to get into some double hearsay, I think, at this point. She's going to talk about the phone call. I don't know if she's about to talk about the phone call between Ms. Schubert and Ms. Givens, but I think that's what she's about to talk about.
Please direct your questions.
So, well, I guess she's saying what she actually heard, Judge, and that witness has already testified.
All right. Ask specific questions. If you want to elicit that, you may be able to. Just ask specific questions about it.
So
That was a mighty impressive load of vibers you got there, ma'am. Thank you.
you were present when Lindsay Schubert called Andrea Givens. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was Lindsay saying?
There was a loud conversation between the two of them as far as where Killian was, what had exactly happened, that she had been called earlier that morning and told that Killian was hurt and that she was hurt, and wanted to know why she was telling Deputy Truslow and us that nothing had happened. And she was very visibly upset, didn't understand why she was telling her one thing, but I was telling her something else from the information I was getting directly from Deputy Truslow.
Okay, so all of this is going on, and do you at that point know whether or not Lindsay had gone to the hospital, or do you know anything about that
I believe Lindsay was at the hospital during that phone call.
while this was going on?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you're getting that information that she's at the hospital. You're getting concerns that Killian is injured in some form. Do you then direct Deputy Truslow to go back out and take additional action, or how does that come about?
So between phone calls and text messages, we had several during the time that I was out with her to confirm what was or what wasn't. And at some point after hearing the phone call, the information, it was very clear that what was being told to me from Deputy Truslow was not what the person on the phone was saying. And I spoke to Deputy Truslow and said, of course, I can't confirm who that is on the phone, but something's not adding up. Something happened out there. We need to go make sure that the child is safe and doesn't have any injuries, because according to these parties, Killian was injured as well as the person on the phone, and she's currently at the hospital getting treatment for an injury to her head. So we need to go check on Killian, which Deputy Truslow did. I don't remember if he messaged me or called me, but he confirmed there were injuries to Killian and confirmed that they were a result of Mr. Henson holding Killian up against the wall, and Killian receiving injury for some picture or an item or a shelf or something that was on the wall when he pushed him into the wall.
Okay.
And then did Deputy Truslow follow up with you and let you know that he had talked to Killian?
He did, and he told me that he had arrested Mr. Henson for assaulting Killian and was transporting him
Except for butternut squash.
to the hospital, or to the jail.
Okay. And then at some point, did you get involved and go retrieve Killian to take him to Andrea Givens?
I did. The family that he was with did not want her on the property. So I went and picked Killian up from, I believe it was his aunt's house, Miss Wheeler's house.
Okay.
Forgive me, I don't know the family. Cousin, sister, aunt.
So Jennifer
Sorry.
Wheeler's house?
Yes.
And when you got Killian, did you take him over to the gas station to meet his mother?
I did. His demeanor was very uncomfortable for me. He seemed very scared. When I got him out of the car, he just had a look of wanting to tell me what was going on, not understanding what was going on, had questions. And I told him that I knew he'd already spoken with Deputy Truslow, but that I wanted to speak to him and make sure that we had all of the correct information. And so I spent a few minutes interviewing him before I walked him over to his mom.
Now, did you actually see Killian's injuries to his person as well?
Yes, I noted injury to his neck, multiple line bruising injuries around his neck, several injuries on his back, and he additionally provided me with the shirt that he was wearing during the incident that had blood stains on it.
Okay. And did you take pictures of those as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you have body cam capabilities whenever you were interacting with these parties on the state?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you briefly just tell the jury how your body cam works, just in general?
So this is it. It's a device that we all are issued and wear, and I say that are in the enforcement side. When we are on duty, we usually keep it in a standby mode, and then as soon as we have contact, getting out on a traffic stop or getting out of our car on a call, we initiate the device to record, and it's all stored directly to a storage server with Axon that our agency contracts with for proper storage. Immediately uploads to the system and saves.
So is it like where it uploads at the end of your shift or something like that? Or does it just immediately upload?
Currently, it immediately uploads. I believe it was back then we had to upload it by wire. But now the new software process, the new contracts, as soon as I get back in my car, it should immediately upload now. But then I think I had to download.
Okay. And once it's downloaded or anything like that, is there any way that anybody could alter, delete the body cam footage or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. I'm one of 4 lieutenants in patrol, and none of us have access to do anything like that.
Okay. Now, have you had a chance to review your body camera footage previous to court today?
Yes, ma'am.
And was what you saw a fair and accurate depiction of your interaction with the folks on that April 16th day?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this point, I'd move to tender Lieutenant Colette's body cam as state 6.
No objection.
State 6 is admitted. You may publish.
I can't remember, but this might be loud when they turn the audio on, but I can't remember.
And Judge, I'm going to start the body cam at approximately 35 seconds. Lieutenant Colette, can you tell me who we're looking at right now on the body cam? Oh, well, who we were looking at.
That is Killian and his aunt, and I believe Miss Wheeler is her name.
Wheeler?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was that her house that you were at right there picking up Killian?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And permission to publish?
You may.
Well, you are not in trouble. Are you all right? I know you've had everybody.
That's all.
Like your backbone.
The bruise part.
Can I see it? Oh, buddy. Yeah, I see it. You got some other marks that cures.
I do. Are you sure it's not just dried blood?
It's bruises. It's all.
Or is it? I have stretch marks back there.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
No, I have
So-
my neck right there.
Do you have a black eye?
No, I don't think so. Do I?
We're not here in the sun. Did you get hit in the face last night?
No, I've been rubbing my eyes so just now.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm stopping at 142. So, Lieutenant Colette, then do you take Killian over to the gas station to meet Andrea Gibbons?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how far was that gas station away? Was it pretty close?
Yeah, a few houses down the street on the corner.
Okay. And I'm going to start back at 349.
Hey, I gotta call you back in just a second.
And stopping it at 408. So who is present in the frame there?
Hi, Tina P.
Killian and his mother,
Okay.
Miss Gibbons.
That's all your favorites. I forgot my spicy chips.
Listen, it's okay. I'm not even out there, but listen. Lindsay said through the aunt, you can take him over there and get his stuff. Has she communicated that with you?
Yeah, I just apologize.
She doesn't want you to go in the house though.
No, that's fine.
Just stay in the car, let him go get what.
Yes. Oh my God.
Take pictures of it.
Oh God.
Yeah, take pictures of it, okay? Take pictures of it tomorrow and the next.
He won't get out. And they'll issue a TPO automatically in the courtroom.
No, you have.
And it's no assault they do.
No, they don't. They will issue bond conditions, but you have to go ask for a TPO from them. You have to go do it. Okay, they will give bond conditions, but not a.
I'll stop it at 508. So, tell me kind of what's going on in that video where she turned around and saw Killian.
So this is several hours into our original contact where she's been told multiple times that her son was not involved in an incident, her son was not injured by me, because that's the information that I was being told. she had an emotional reaction because I guess someone finally listened and someone finally believed her and insisted on, checking on Killian, even though I thought that had already been done hours before the initial contact. So an emotional reaction from a mom who's had her child kept from her for a period of time that had injury.
And so,
I'm just going to kindly object and just ask the witness to keep the testimony to the boundaries that the prosecution has requested.
All right. Well, that's a legal objection, but Ms. Jackson, you asked questions, and Lieutenant, you can answer the questions she asked. Go ahead and ask the next question, Ms.
yes, so, Lieutenant,
Somebody in this court case has to accidentally say, Lieutenant Dan, please.
Colette, and this stopped at 4:43 on the video. Is Andrea turning around looking at Killian showing his injuries?
Yes, yes, ma'am. And you could see the marks on his neck from the distance as well.
And so at some point, did you initially talk to Killian there next to Andrea?
Yes, ma'am. And then I think I pulled him off to the side.
And then later y'all had a private interview, is that accurate? Okay. Well, I'm gonna start the video back at 8:30.
8:30 a.m.
That doesn't hurt at all. Like that doesn't. I can't.
What is that from? Strangling him?
Yeah, when he held me against the wall, he held me by my neck.
Did you tell the other officer
Yeah,
that?
they took pictures. That's why I got arrested.
I knew about the back injury, but
Yeah, remember
Yeah,
I
he
told
took
you,
a picture of my neck.
I told you, he choked him against the wall, slammed him into the wall.
hold on.
Did you tell the police that?
I don't know if she.
He hit Lindsay over the head with a stool. That's why her head is busted open.
But by the time he was finished, there was blood everywhere, and I had to help her. She couldn't move down to the bathroom floor, so.
He punched her in the face and hit her over the head with a stool.
He did a
That's why
lot.
her head's cracked open. I was wondering how it would get cracked open just by hitting the wall.
I'm proud of you for telling him when he came out.
Yeah, the only reason he hurt me is because I tried to separate them, and then he smashed my phone. But I have to get that out of the yard. I have warranty on it, so I can just get it replaced.
Can I take pictures of your neck? I'm sorry, I know you're probably tired of being poked and prodded today.
I think the other sergeant also got a picture of it.
So there's what appears to be finger marks.
Yeah, I've looked at it.
So can you describe how he grabbed you by the throat?
So firstly, he was pushing me back all my arms, and then when he got me to the wall, he went like that, and then the reason I got the marks on my back is because he slammed me into the wall's concrete in the basement. So that's how that happened.
When he pushed you, his hand was on your throat.
I can't remember which way it was,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So when he pushed you back up against the wall, and that's how your back got injured,
Yeah.
was the wall flat, or was there something hanging on the wall? The markings?
I don't think there's anything on the wall right now. I was sitting on top of a laundry basket.
Did you feel your body weight being lifted? Did he lift you off of the ground by your throat, or no? Your feet stayed planted?
I was sitting on a laundry basket, so he could have lifted me. I couldn't tell if so. But when he dragged me off the bed, he did pick me up my right leg and arm. That's probably why this arm hurts a little bit more when I move it like that.
Okay. I know y'all are probably in a hurry, but can I just have 5 minutes with him? Can you come and just from start to finish tell me what happened? Or last night, what happened?
So Lindsay and him got into an argument, and then he was going to make us leave.
Do you know what Lindsay and him were arguing about?
Just stupid stuff. I don't really even know it. I only know why they were arguing towards the end, like in the argument part. And then he grabbed her by the face and pushed her around. And then I was like, "Don't touch her! Stop it!" And then I tried to grab him off of her. Like I tried to grab his arm a little bit and pull him off. And then he pushed me by the arms and pushed me to the wall and stuff. And then he started yelling at me to give him my phone. And I was crying once I started crying.
Do you know why he wanted you to give him your phone?
Because I tried to separate them. And
Like you were in trouble, so he's going to take it, or were you
Yeah.
trying to call for
no,
help?
I wasn't trying to call for help.
He was taking it because you
I guess.
you didn't.
I guess he had already got violent at that point. He was coughing up the mouth. I'm pretty sure he was high on something.
Do you know what something might be?
And I'm gonna stop it at 12:08, Lieutenant Colette. Now, is this part of the interaction where you had talked to Killian by himself?
Yes, ma'am.
And then did you later continue on the interview a little bit more in
Yep.
this body cam?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Judge, I'll ask, I didn't ask at the beginning of the video, but would the court instruct the jury about portions of the video not being played, defense and prosecution had discussed?
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can imagine, there may be portions on the videotape that contain statements that are not relevant or admissible here in this trial. And so I've instructed the attorneys to just silence or skip through those portions that are not relevant and not for your consideration. You shouldn't put any weight on that. It's just they're following the court's instructions. Please continue, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. I'm going to start back at 12:20.
And then they went in the bedroom after he told me to go to sleep.
He took your phone.
He smashed it and
What did he smash it on?
up the ground. He just threw it to the ground.
Like in the house,
Yeah.
on the floor?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, you know you're not getting there. Like my screensaver's still on the floor there, shattered, and even my phone's in the yard. I'm gonna have to go pick that up and get it replaced. So, I mean, and then we were in the back of the bedroom, like we were yelling, and and he put his hands on her, and then he kept calling my bedroom, called me a pussy.
When you say he put his hands on her, did
Like grabbing
you
her,
see
slapping-
it?
No,
You
but I
could
heard
just
it.
hear
I
it?
heard it. Yes.
Okay.
And then she kept saying, "Get out of my house," and he would not leave. And then I didn't see the stool, but after he was like, "Hurry up, Killian, hurry up, go get the fan or something and water." And when I went in there,
Go
she
get
was
the what?
fan and water. We have a big fan, and then she also needed water.
For
She
Nobody's going to understand this part, nor do I. I can't describe it. I don't know what he's saying about go get water for the fan.
she kept asking for water, so he asked for water.
because she was hurt, or
Yes, and she just kept asking for some water.
okay?
And so I got her a bottle of water and I moved the fan in there, and she was laying on the floor. There was blood everywhere.
In the bathroom.
Stop it at 13-minute, 30-second timestamp. Now, Lieutenant Colette, after you finished speaking to Killian, is that when you went over and took the pictures of his tank top and neck and things of that nature?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you, after speaking to Killian, talk back to Deputy Truslow?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the nature of that conversation?
A little bit of confusion because what I had been told up until seeing Killian and interviewing Killian was not what I was being told via phone, via text by Deputy Truslow. The information that he provided here at the gas station was very clear that a domestic had occurred the night before and that she was injured in some manner and that, you hear him saying he had tried to help her and the bathroom was covered in blood, which was what the initial call from my complainant was that, I believe that the words a bloody violent incident had occurred where her child was staying. But I had been told up until this point of meeting with Killian that none of that had actually happened.
Okay. And at that point, did you also have knowledge that Lindsay was at the hospital and that may also be potentially serious?
Yes. Via Killian's mom, that they were calling you. I understood, believed to be that was who was calling her.
Objection, this is.
I hate going to the grocery store, but I was a single mom of 3 kids, so every time I had to go to the grocery store, Anthony, get over here. Victoria, put that back. Tiffany, don't eat that. Anthony, get over here. It was, and then, you know, you got to, they have to stand still in line while you pay. And of course, they're not going to. They're going to get Cheerios all over the floor. And then you have to get the kids in the house. So you got a car seat one hand and 2 bags in another. And you're trying to get the other 2 to get into the house. And then you got to go back out. And then when you leave to go back out to get the rest of the groceries, those little bastards do something bad. And then you have to clean that up. So, oh God, my kids are all adults now, but oh man, do I hate going to that grocery store.
A lot of hearsay. Because Miss Givens was not at the hospital. So Miss Givens got this from somebody else. And then I guess called investigator Colette and told her this information. I mean, this is like multiple layers of hearsay at this point.
Ms. Jackson.
Judge, I think it was already testified to, but I will try to narrow the question.
Sustain the objection. Narrow your question.
Did you have information through your investigation that Lindsay had gone to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you also make that known to Deputy Truslow?
Yes, ma'am, I directed him to go to the hospital and interview her.
And then based on what Killian was saying about his neck and all of that, did you instruct Deputy Truslow to take appropriate warrants for those charges as well?
Yes, I did.
And did he ever do so?
To my knowledge, he only took a one simple battery count warrant.
Okay. Did you also instruct him to do a strangulation packet for both Killian and Lindsay?
Yes, I did.
Or do you know if he did it for Lindsay?
To my knowledge, he never went to interview Lindsay.
Okay. And that was even after knowledge that she had been in the hospital?
Yes.
Now, and so what did you do? I guess I just want to ask about Deputy Truslow a little bit. Does he still work for the police department?
No, he does not.
And did he leave shortly after this case?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
And are you aware of the circumstances surrounding his leaving the department?
I am minimally. I was not in the room when it occurred, but I was called to be there to speak with him about the multiple issues that were being discussed with our patrol commander and our assistant commander and him at the time.
Okay. And and so apparently there was some meeting that went on. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when?
I'm going to go ahead and object. It's not relevant.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you step back to the jury room for just a moment.
And now you'll be reminded, I think it's right here, why we just so much love to hate this lawyer. Come on, Shapiro. We're ready. Hit us with it.
All right, Ms. Jackson, since the door closed, your response.
I'm sorry?
Your response.
I think it's absolutely relevant. I foresee that Mr. Shapiro is going to call Deputy Truslow, and the testimony is going to center around why he was frustrated with this case, why he thought he did enough, why he left the department, all sorts of stuff. And so I do think his leaving right after this case is relevant in the way that he treated this case and why a supervisor had to get involved and all of that, Judge.
Your Honor, I've got all of his post records. He left the police station, the police force in good standing via voluntary resignation. I did not bring up his.
Again, you're going to find out why he left in good standing.
Departure from the police force that was introduced by the prosecution in opening when they said that he was disciplined as a result of this incident. And so I'm not getting into his departure or why he left. I'm just getting into what he did on the case. He came out there interviewed multiple witnesses and asking him what he saw and what he did is appropriate. But I think asking him, why did you leave the force? I mean, it's just not relevant.
So you're not planning to go into that? You're not going to ask any questions about that?
I mean, I think the only thing, I'll be honest, the only thing I'm going to ask at this point is because the prosecution in opening said he was disciplined, I am going to ask him, you're not a deputy anymore. Did you resign in good state? How did you leave the force? I mean, I guess also my other thing is that the meeting that's about to be testified to, my understanding is that investigator Colette wasn't present there. But if she was, a lot of it's hearsay because it involves people that weren't just them two. So it's irrelevant and has hearsay around it.
Well, I wasn't going to ask her about the contents of the meeting. I know what hearsay means. And also, if there's records that Mr. Shapiro has about his post records and everything, then I should be entitled to see that. And I don't know why that wasn't provided to me.
Nope, they're not discoverable. I'm not introducing them as evidence.
Then also, Judge, I should be able to go into what the circumstances surrounding his leaving were. If there was a meeting and then he left, if they were investigating his DV cases and then he left mid-meeting, yeah, he resigned in the middle of the meeting.
Well, that would
So his paper trail says, yeah, I'm a good solid dude, but we're entitled to the full story there.
The judge knows the full story. The judge who wasn't there, who hasn't heard anything about nothing, knows the full story. Here we go.
However, if they want to get into he's mishandled DV in the past and he mishandled again, that would just be a character propensity argument that wouldn't be admissible anyways.
So what is it you're wanting to put in front of the jury, Ms. Jackson?
Well, I'm just trying to ask Lieutenant Colette on the periphery about whether or not there was a meeting, whether or not he left in the middle of that meeting, and then I have rebuttal witnesses if I need them to discuss what happened in that meeting.
That meeting's not relevant.
So I'm gathering out of all of this, essentially, that Deputy Truslow, after this event on April 16th, was counseled by his superiors about his performance in this case, and maybe others. And at some point, he resigned. During the course of that, he resigned and left the police force, right? Left the sheriff's office.
Yes.
Fair to say?
Yes.
Can we boil it down to that? I mean, is that objectionable to put in front of the jury that after this, they consulted
Good job, Judge.
with him about his performance in this case? And during that consultation, he resigned and left the sheriff's office? I mean, I agree, getting into performance on other things, other matters, not relevant at all.
I mean, the truth is, just to put it on the record, he left because of a series of things, and there were other cases that I think he had disagreements with in terms of how they were handled. So it also wasn't just because of this case.
Well, when I interviewed him after Mr. Shapiro talked to him, he said, like, he will say he left because of this case.
And I mean, I think that's probably the appropriate way to go about it, Judge.
I mean, I just think that, we don't need to get way off base, but y'all both said in opening, I mean, I don't remember the state saying he was disciplined, but they may have blanked that out, but I do remember you saying, oh, he didn't leave because of this. It's tangentially relevant, but not very. So maybe if we bring the jury back in, Ms. Jackson, you can just ask along the same lines of,
I'm sorry, what's the last part?
I'm saying, I think that what you were asking was, after this event, were you involved in discussing this with Deputy Truslow and others? And did he subsequently resign from the sheriff's office? I don't think, she can't say why he resigned. She can just say, yeah, we had to talk about this case and he resigned and left the sheriff's office
Okay.
soon
And-
thereafter.
Okay.
I don't think you should go into anything else or what was said or anything else, but that they had a discussion that she was involved in about the handling of this case, and he subsequently resigned and no longer works at the sheriff's office. We move on.
Okay. And then I just would ask the court to instruct defense when they call Deputy Truslow that needs to be limited because he could really open the door to that.
Well, I think if Deputy Truslow gets up here and testifies and says, I quit because they're a bunch of sorry individuals at the sheriff's office and I didn't do anything wrong, then maybe that opens that for the state to put up rebuttal about everything else. But I mean, we really don't want this case to be about Deputy Truslow. We want this to be about whatever happened on April 15th with Mr. Henson and the folks in his household.
And I'll be honest, Your Honor, when I'm
Judge, come on. Deputy Treslow gives us, an extra level of crazy on this that we want. We want this lady right here to get on the stand and tell us exactly what she feels about Deputy Treslow. That's all we want. I just want to hear unfiltered, what do you think about him? And you're under oath, so you have to tell the truth. And you have to say everything you feel about him.
worried about is, I think, in opening, the state said he was disciplined. They realized he wasn't disciplined, and now they want to bring that back a little bit.
It's delicious.
And so I'm sorry that you said that during opening, but he wasn't disciplined.
But he was in the middle of being disciplined and he left.
So that's not what happened.
I guess it depends on what your idea of discipline is. If I get called to the principal's office, I think that's being disciplined.
Just,
Depending on how you define it.
yes, sir.
All right, so can we narrow it down to that, what we just talked about, Ms. Jackson, that after this, Deputy Treslow was consulted or instructed or confronted about how he handled this case, and he subsequently resigned and no longer works at the sheriff's office?
Yes.
Is that consistent with what you would say?
Your Honor,
I need a favor. Not now, not in chat. Don't put it in chat. Because I need to be able to see it afterwards. I won't be able to go back and look through chat. Nope, I just won't. If you are a Viber, okay, and you either speak Spanish or really love Mark Anthony, or both, you can be both, but as long as one of those conditions exists, I need you to put it in comments of this video later. You either speak Spanish or you love Mark Anthony, or both, You can be both. It's fine. No one's judging you. So later, I'm not scrolling back through comments, through the chat here. So if you put it in here, I'm not. It's too hard. It's just too hard. I can't do it, guys.
I can't say that. I wasn't in the room, so I don't know how far along that they got in the numerous other issues that they had to review with him. I just know I was up there to review this incident, and he quit before I was called into the room. So I don't know how far the captain and first lieutenant got to which case before he said he was resigning. I don't know.
Well, then how about,
She was up there to be involved in a meeting to review this case and he left before that could have occurred.
Sorry to interject. It's just that the meeting might have not even involved this case. The meeting might have involved, I'll just be blunt, it has to do with Danny Peck in that case.
And others, yes, sir.
don't know anything about that.
That's just my point is that we're now talking about a meeting that's not even relevant to this case.
But
Okay, let me ask this question. Were you concerned about Deputy Truslow's
Are you doing this right now?
involvement or competence in this investigation?
extremely.
And did you subsequently report that to your supervisor?
Yes, sir, I did, in great detail.
And once you did that, were you then requested to participate in a meeting?
He's an extremely popular singer. He was married to J-Lo. Mark Anthony, come on. Mark Anthony.
Regarding that issue with Deputy Truslow?
Yes, sir.
And did you ever participate in that meeting?
I was not able to go into the meeting because the meeting ended before it was finished by him resigning because he declined to have any of his DV cases investigated.
His voice is like, I don't know how to describe his voice. It's so good.
Is what I understood.
So can we narrow it down to that of,
That last part, though, what you understood, were you told that?
Was I told that?
You said that
Yes, sir.
he quit. So what did he all you know is he walked out of that room. You don't know why he walked out of that room or what he said, correct?
No, I wasn't in the room, as I told the judge, no.
So this is what I'm saying. I think Ms. Jackson can ask, were you concerned about Deputy Truslow's investigation and conduct in this case? She said yes. Did you report that concern to your supervisor? And she can answer the way she just did. And were you subsequently summoned by your superiors to provide further information with Deputy Truslow? Yes, I was summoned. Did you ever participate in that conversation? No. Why not? Deputy Truslow resigned, and I never was involved in any further conversations about it.
Yes, sir.
Is that
Yes, Judge.
fair enough, Ms. Jackson? You kind of
Yes.
asked those questions. I'll give you a little leeway to ask some leading questions just to try to keep us on this narrow, windy road.
Yes, Judge.
All right. Anything else for this before we bring the jury back in?
No, Your Honor.
All right, bring the jury in. All right, Ms. Jackson, please proceed.
Yes, Judge, thank you. So Lieutenant Colette, after this April 16th day, did you have occasion to report to your superiors that you were concerned about Deputy Truslow's involvement and performance in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you in fact report that to your supervisor?
Yes, ma'am.
And then later, were you summoned to a meeting where this case was going to be reviewed with supervisors?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you ever get a chance to partake in that meeting?
No, ma'am.
And why was that?
He resigned during the meeting prior to me being called in.
All right, Lieutenant Colette, I think that this is all the questions I have for you at this point in time, but Mr. Shapiro will have some.
Yes, ma'am.
So Investigator Colette, what is your current rank,
Lieutenant,
Lieutenant? At this time, what was your rank?
I was a sergeant. I may have been an acting lieutenant at that time. I'm not 100%. I think I was a shift sergeant at that time.
And in terms of the hierarchy, where's that ranking in line with that ranking at that time now?
A promotion, one promotion up.
Okay. So at this point, you've been promoted. You're more in a supervisor role now than you were then?
More of a supervisor role, is that what your question was?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm the watch commander now of my shift.
Okay. And do you mainly focus on specific types of crimes, crimes against people, or what do you specialize in particularly?
We're full service, so we respond and I supervise all calls
Okay.
for the whole county when I'm on duty.
So it's not like just CID or something like that?
No, it's patrol. It's calls for service, calls for assistance, crashes, domestics.
Okay. And then I want to make sure back in 2023, you were Deputy Truslow's supervising, or I guess patrol officer at that point, supervising lieutenant?
He was assigned to the north end and I was working the south end. I don't believe he was reporting directly to me that day. He was in a different area than I was working.
Okay. And so you weren't a direct supervisor, but you were in contact with him concerning this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the day that this all occurred, I believe, where's your flash drive at the bottom?
Oh, I'm sure it'll still be in there.
Going back to states six, you went out there around 5 p.m. that day, correct? To the gas station?
To meet Killian?
To meet Miss Givens.
I met Miss Givens in her apartment complex with Flowery Branch.
Before you went out and met Killian?
Yes,
Okay, so at the time that you meet with Miss Givens and Killian at the gas station, you've already talked to Miss Givens.
yes.
Okay. And approximately when did you talk to Miss Givens that day? Do you recall?
Several hours before I went to get Killian.
Okay, and is that recorded?
Yes.
Did you turn it over as evidence to anybody?
No one's requested it from me, but they have access to pull our body cam.
Okay, so the conversation that you have with,
Don't throw anything at your monitors, okay, guys?
Miss Givens is unrecorded, or at least not in evidence at this point?
It should be recorded. I don't know if it's in evidence or not.
Now, did you, how many times did you talk to Miss Givens before you spoke with her and Killian at the same time?
Numerous times.
Okay. Did you ever speak with Miss Schubert?
No. Ms. Schubert is the victim of being hit with the chair. Is that who you're referring to?
Correct.
Yeah. No, I never spoke with her. I thought the deputy had gone and interviewed her.
Okay. And so then at 5 o'clock when you are talking, you were on direct and you said at this point you had to direct Deputy Treslow to go back out there and take out warrants. Is that right?
For Killian's injuries,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe he had already applied for a simple battery warrant at that time.
Okay. Do you recall on direct that previously you stated, and maybe I misunderstood, do you recall stating that at this time, Miss Officer Treslow had not taken out any arrest warrants and that you had to tell him to do that after this?
I know people watching later, my replay crew, you guys don't like when I pause for chat, but this is why I pause. Look. This is security. Security has a real problem going on. Security just dropped her phone on her glass kitchen table, right? Right away, Monica comes in with empathy. Oh no, did it break, security? Oh, that's it. Okay, that's as empathetic as it gets. Up, security, better than the toilet. Donald, is that a drop call? This is why you should always watch my videos with chat on because it's great.
To my knowledge, he arrested Mr. Jensen at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half before this for simple battery, is what I understood at the time that I met Killian.
And this is the state 6. That's Killian's left shoulder that he's got the backpack on, correct?
Yes.
And you see the trampoline right behind there?
Yes.
Do you know if he had been playing on that right before?
Objection, speculation.
Did you ever see anybody playing on the trampoline?
I don't recall seeing him, but I saw the other children outside playing.
Then at this point, that's with Miss Wheeler, correct? That's Jennifer Wheeler?
Yes.
All right. And now I want to get a little bit more into this part.
Do you know what?
I want to get to 11:35.
And then
1 second, Your Honor.
I was like, don't touch her, stop it. And then I tried to grab him off of her. Like I tried to like grab his arm a little bit and pull him off. And then he pushed me by the arms and pushed me to the wall.
At that point, Killian tells you that he got pushed by Kevin Henson, by his dad, against the wall, correct?
Correct.
At this point, he does not use the words choked or strangled, does he?
Not in the clip you just played.
Okay. And I'm going to continue to play it.
And then he started yelling at me to give him my phone. And I was crying once I started crying.
Do you know why he wanted you to give him your phone?
At this point, he hasn't said that he was strangled or choked, did he?
I don't know, sir. I'd have to watch the whole thing. I don't remember exactly what he said getting in and out of the car, but I feel like someone said the marks were from him being choked.
Do you think that might have been Miss Givens that said it, not him?
I don't recall.
All right.
And while they're doing that, I'm going to show you. I've been practicing with Lafayette a trick. Oh, he just left. He just left. I hate these cats. Someone needs to save me because I really hate all of these cats.
So I think she will for her brother.
Also, please tell the other sergeant that he's really cool. He's cool. I like that.
The gentleman,
At this point, that's Killian tell the other sergeant he's really cool. Is he talking about Deputy Treslow?
I don't know.
That's
Deputy Truslow's not a sergeant, so
that's the only other person that saw Killian that day, right?
I don't know. I wasn't at the initial call. I don't have any knowledge of who else would have been there.
Is it your understanding that Deputy Treslow went out once or twice?
Once that morning and then met with him again at the aunt's house.
Okay. And at that point, that's when did you ever get the images from him that he took?
I did not.
Okay. By any chance, did you happen to tell Miss Givens that nobody else went out there to view her son? By any chance, did you tell Miss Givens that?
That no one else went out there to view her son.
To check on her son? Did you by any chance tell Miss Givens that no responding officer went to go check on her son? Did you tell her that?
I don't know. I'd have to watch the body camera footage. Are you meaning like when I initially had contact with her?
Correct. So at some point, you said that, well, I guess what I'm asking you is, did you tell her that no other officer came there to check her son? Did you give her the understanding that you were the only officer working on it?
No.
Okay. Now,
She was aware because she was around when I was communicating back with the other deputy.
okay.
and that was at your.
Yeah, he's cool.
house
He's
earlier?
cool. Yeah, he's always been nice to me. That doesn't hurt at all. Like that doesn't. I can't.
And at that point, with regard to his neck, Killian Henson says that does not hurt at all, correct?
Correct.
What is that from?
Strangling him.
Yeah, when he held me.
Now, do you agree that Miss Givens is the one that says strangling?
Absolutely. But I already knew that he had been assaulted on his neck because it was clear injury getting out of the car.
Right, but in terms of strangulation versus grabbing on the neck and putting into a wall, would you agree Miss Givens gives the strangulation part, correct?
On this video, yes, but I think there'd been prior communication amongst all of them throughout the last several hours.
Between Killian and Miss Givens?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, other recorded conversations that I'm missing?
Not that I have, but I know they were calling both of the other female parties
Okay.
and communicating with them, and both of them were providing information back to Killian's mom about what had happened.
Okay. And I think that you, and so going back between this time and the time,
They don't deserve treats, but for you, I will give them treats. Thank you, Maria.
that I showed you previously at 11:35, what Killian reported was that he was pushed into, just in terms of this body cam, was that he was pushed into a wall once, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he never tells you that he was repeatedly slammed and grabbed and put up in the air against a wall, does he?
He did tell me that he was held up against a wall because I remember specifically asking what was behind him or on the wall that would have caused the injury. Because if it was a flat surface, he wouldn't have what he had.
Okay, and do you recall about a minute before that, or about 2 minutes after this, when you asked him if he was lifted off the ground and he said no, he was not lifted off the ground?
Yes.
Now, in this case, you said that Deputy Truslow did not complete a strangulation report. Did you complete one?
No, I directed him to complete one.
Zach, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now I'll get more snacks for the kitties.
So earlier, when you said, when the question was whether he completed one or not, you answered that he did not complete one, but the answer is that he did complete one?
I don't believe that he did complete one.
Okay, Commissioner Poach?
You may.
Thank you. Investigator Colette, or sorry, Sergeant Colette, can you please tell the jury what this is?
Well, and Judge, I think he can refresh her memory. I don't think that's the proper way to go about it.
Or sorry, okay, that's right.
She can identify what it is.
Yeah, just identifying just the top of what it is.
It's our judicial circuit's standard strangulation packet.
Okay, and did you do one of these?
No, I did not.
Okay, he's facing us finally. There is Shapiro. Who else? Like, I have a completely different picture of Shapiro in my head because I only ever see him from the back. So when he turns around, I don't know who he is. Who the hell is that guy in the courtroom? Get him out of there. Where's Shapiro?
I directed him to.
Was this filled out?
I've never seen that before, so.
But earlier you said that Investigator Truslow did not do a strangulation report. Would the correct answer be you did not know whether he did one or not?
Deputy Truslow, in the conversations that I had at that time, he had not submitted one or taken any criminal charges.
But your testimony today was that he did not do a strangulation report. Do you now agree that that testimony is incorrect?
No, because I don't know when that was submitted or who approved it.
Are you aware that this was submitted in the state's discovery?
No.
So you're telling me for the case that you're here testifying about, you have no clue what the strangulation report is?
I'm very well aware of what the packet is, but I have not seen that, no.
But would you now agree that somebody filled it out with respect to this case?
Yes.
And it wasn't you?
No.
Now, you spoke to Killian, but not Lindsay Schubert, correct?
Correct.
And you spoke to Killian in the presence of Miss Givens, his biological mother, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that when you interview a child, you're not supposed to interview them in front of the biological parent. You're supposed to separate them, aren't you?
I think that's subject to your opinion. I
You
don't
don't
know.
do forensic interviews, do you?
No, I do not do forensic interviews.
Trained in interviewing children, correct?
I do have a certification for investigations and interviews through the FBI.
Okay.
And some of that class was specifically training with children and interviewing children, but I am not a certified forensic interviewer, no.
That class, did they say you should interview the child with the biological parent there or not there?
Depending on the circumstances.
If there is reason to believe, if there's room for influence, wouldn't you want to get an independent witness statement? I mean, if you're talking to a witness in general, don't you want to interview them independently without influence from the outside?
Which is why I walked away with him. Yes, sir.
And when you walked away from him, all he said is that he was pushed, whereas when he was next to his mom, that's when the word strangled came in.
Again, that's why I directed Deputy Truslow to do his interview, go back with him and work on the strangulation packet and determine if any additional charges were done.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, I didn't know that he did the strangulation packet or if he ever went back and interviewed Killian.
To be fair, by the time that he resigned, do you think maybe you didn't really check to see what he did or didn't do because you would have known that he did a strangulation report?
So I'm not his boss. It wasn't my job to check to see if he did or he didn't do that. I don't know who he turned it into because he didn't turn it into me that day.
I'm assuming he didn't do it after he resigned, right?
I'm assuming he did not.
So someday during that 5-day span, probably.
I don't know.
Now, he interviewed both Lindsay and Killian. You only interviewed Killian, not Lindsay, right?
Again, I never had contact with her. To my knowledge, she was at an emergency treatment center in some manner. And I directed Deputy Truslow to respond to where she was and interview her.
Did you take out the resulting aggravated assault warrant regarding her?
I did not.
Okay. Did Truslow take it out?
I do not believe he did.
Mr. Shapiro, let me have you and Ms. Jackson approach for just a moment.
Oh, it just gets worse from here for this guy.
Please proceed.
And so I guess what I'm curious about is he interviewed both parties. Why did you not interview all parties? Why did you not interview Ms. Schubert?
I didn't know where she was by the end of the day, and I thought that Deputy Truslow had already gone to locate her and interview her because I had directed him to do so.
So fair to say what you were told was coming from Killian Henson and Andrea Givens, correct?
That's who I was speaking to, yes, sir.
And part of that conversation is with Ms. Givens present, and some of that conversation is with Killian independently.
Yes, sir.
And the one where it's independently is when he shows you that he was pushed once against the wall and doesn't say anything about being choked.
Yes, sir. After the incident, did you ever have any more contact with Ms. Givens or Killian Henson after the 16th? That's been 2 years ago. I don't recall any other calls with them.
Was there any, I guess, outside of your investigation on that day, was there any more like supplements or packets that you had to do like this or anything like that?
I don't believe so. If there is, I'm happy to refresh my memory with it. But like I said, that wasn't my shift, and I didn't follow up with him the end of the day or the next day to see what he had done or not. That would have been his other supervisor.
Okay. And earlier you said that you were speaking to Ms. Givens and there was a lot of back and forth with some missing links. So you were kind of stepping in to help close up some of those missing links, so to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But in closing up those missing links, that's your first involvement where you go out around 5 o'clock and that's the main involvement you have, which is taking Killian over to his mother?
No, sir. I think I was on the call for over 2 hours.
With Ms. Givens?
Not with Ms. Givens the entire time, but making phone calls, trying to determine what had happened with her and other departments.
Okay. But at that point, you were talking to Ms. Givens and some other people, but had not spoken to Killian until you saw him later, correct?
I don't know if she had contact with Killian or not by phone. I understood that she had spoken with him at some point
Based
with
off what she was telling you.
other phones, yes. But you would have to ask her.
Okay. And do you recall her asking you on there, hey, can I get him arrested? Can I get a TPO? Those kinds of things. And you said you'll have to go to court to do that or something like that?
Yes, sir. We don't give automatic TPOs. You have to see a Superior Court judge to request a TPO.
Okay. And then one other thing about the state 6. In this video, Killian's kind of standing holding his left arm, but that's the backpack that he's got on the left arm, right? That's the backpack on the left arm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there he's got the left bag on the back and another bag in his left arm, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he appears to be walking normal?
Yes, sir.
And then fast forward a little bit to this point, I think earlier you said that over here, Killian just looked really scared and closed up like he wanted to tell you something. Is that what you were talking about?
He just looked uncomfortable.
Okay.
I don't know if it's permanent, and I don't know.
And do you recall, even though you said he looked uncomfortable and in pain, do you recall him still saying to you with regard to his neck that he feels fine and doesn't hurt?
I do, and I was very proud of him for trying to overcome what he'd been through and act like he wasn't as hurt as he was.
Okay. But at some point, he told you independently that he was pushed into a wall, right? Is it possible that he was just telling you what happened and wasn't minimizing anything?
I think even with the information that he did provide to me, I do think that he was minimizing
Wawa.
to protect his dad.
And the person in the back, do you know who that is?
I'm sure I asked who she was at the time, but I believe she was an uninvolved party that just gave her a ride from maybe her apartment complex.
And
The
now,
friend.
back to interviewing techniques, would you say that it's proper to interview a child now in front of both the mom and another adult that you don't know who the other adult is?
Unfortunately, it happens sometimes.
But you would agree, probably not the most ideal situation.
No, and it's definitely not the most ideal situation to get out with a child where you've been told he's minorly injured, there's a red mark, and you see all the things that you've been told for 3 hours that are on the child, and they are.
Well, at some point, I believe you check his spine. Is that because Miss Givens told you that he bruised his spine?
I don't recall.
Okay, but on the beginning of the call, you're checking his spine. Why are you checking his spine for, there's nothing on his spine, so why are you checking his spine?
I believe when he leaned forward, I saw a shadow. Our patrol car windows are tinted.
Okay.
And you can't always tell with shadows. It's the same thing when I asked him if he had an injury to his eye because his eye looked black as he was coming from the tinted vehicle out into the sun. That happens often. You just have to ask and confirm.
So I know this is obviously a real bad situation, and this is not proper for Killian to be in this, but when you get there, you assume bruised spine, black eyes, all these things, but those things don't appear.
Well, I didn't assume. That's what I saw as he was getting in and out of my vehicle. There was a shadow on his eye when he was getting out of the car, and I immediately said, "Is your eye black?"
But that's my point, is you're going into there with a predisposition towards injuries, because otherwise, if you see somebody coming out of a car, you wouldn't just say, "Do you have a black eye?" unless you're looking for a black eye.
No, I actually do say that often when I make contact with victims of domestic violence.
But isn't that because you're predisposed to finding injuries? I mean, it's not normal to ask somebody, "Do you have a black eye?" if they don't have a black eye. Wouldn't you agree?
I would not agree. It is normal. People's skin is different toned, and things that I may think are an injury are not. And I try to determine what the issue is. Some people's faces are redder when they get upset. Some people's necks get redder when they get upset. Some people's hands get redder when they get upset. And that is one of the investigation techniques to identify what it is that I'm seeing and ask what the possibility of it is from where it would come from.
So what do you notice about me?
Judge,
I just wanna- I wanna
objection,
test
that
this
is wholly improper.
That's out. I wanna test this
Ask
out.
your next question, Mr. Spear.
So it's a training technique to see black eyes that aren't there? I'm just trying to, there's no black eye there, so what are you looking for?
Again, when he moved in my car, there was a shadow on his face that appeared to cause blackness under his eye, which is why I asked him to move and let me see his eye.
Okay.
And when he moved, there was no black eye, and he verbally said no injury to his eye.
Okay. So what you know is a mark to his back, correct?
At which point?
On this body cam, you take a picture of the mark to his back, correct?
Correct.
And then scratch marks right here, correct?
I don't believe they're scratch marks, but pressure marks on his neck.
Okay. Nothing on the center of his neck, correct?
Not that I recall.
And you don't do a strangulation report, correct?
I do not. I told Deputy Truslow to follow up with him. And at that point also, I assumed Deputy Truslow had already interviewed him in detail, so.
Well, he had.
Judge, I would ask counsel to ask a question and not make extraneous extracurricular comments.
Why is it your understanding that Deputy Treslow has not talked to him at this point? Why do you think that?
Now?
Well, no, like at this, right, you're saying to me that at 5:11 PM, you did not think that Deputy Treslow has come to talk to Killian?
No, I said I thought he had. And what I saw with the injury was not what was passed on to me. Him having the marks on his throat and the extensive injury to his back is not simple battery, which is what I was told, that he had a red mark on his back and he was arresting his father for it.
So Deputy Treslow took out the warrants at that point, and I guess what I'm trying to figure out from you is that at some point, Deputy Treslow goes back out there and talks to Killian. You're telling me right now that you think he did that before this or after this?
But did what? Interviewed him?
Yeah.
At that moment, I thought he had contact with Killian on 2 different occasions prior to us meeting in this parking lot. And that he had been interviewed and welfare checked on the initial call and then interviewed on the second call. That's what I understood.
And are you aware that that is exactly what happened? Are you aware that that's what happened?
No. The video that I reviewed from his initial call, Killian was in the house and on the sofa and was asleep and was not interviewed or asked about a domestic in any way or asked if he was okay.
So you never reviewed the second interview?
I have at the aunt's house.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I sent him there to do that second interview. I've reviewed it.
Which is before this time?
Yes.
So your understanding is still correct that he did those 2 things before this time?
Correct. Well, he didn't interview him the first time, but I understood he had interviewed him at least twice, so I didn't know he didn't interview him the first time at that time.
Okay, I got you. Now, so basically you did not agree with the charges that Officer Treslow took out?
Judge, I'm going to object. The officers agreeing with what charges were actually brought is not relevant.
I'll rephrase the question here. You disagreed with his handling of the case?
At some point after, yes, I disagreed with his hand. I was shocked when the child had multiple injuries, and that was not what was passed on to me.
And then after being unsatisfied with his handling, then you picked it back up and interviewed all the witnesses, right?
I don't think it's unsatisfied. I think it's concerned. That was more concerned because I didn't understand all of the information and the text messages that I was receiving from him, that no incident occurred, nobody was injured, and then we go from that to.
But obviously he took out a warrant in between, so at some point he acknowledged that and took out a warrant because he went back out there a second time, according to you, right?
Correct. I was told that he had injuries to his back, and he wouldn't confirm for me if he had confirmed he was injured or not the first time he had contact with him. So I sent him back out to make contact with the juvenile to confirm if he was safe, if he had any injury.
He's really about to piss off the jury.
To interview him. And he contacted me back and said that he had a red mark on his back and he was arresting the father for it.
Okay, so earlier you said that Officer Treslow told you that there weren't any marks. Was that after the first call but not after the second call?
A second call, meaning phone call between me, and there were multiple phone calls. I would have to look at my phone log to know which conversation was which.
But would you now agree that after instructing Deputy Treslow to go back out there and do the second interview, he did make an arrest and took pictures of the red marks to the back?
Yes.
And What I want to know is after you expressed concern for him and his handling of this case, did you then pick it up and go interview the other witnesses?
I did not interview anyone. I just documented in my report my contact that you have on the video. I did not make any follow-up interviews with anyone because I understood he was doing that because I had directed him to do so.
But then you knew he resigned, so then you knew he wasn't doing it, so then did you do it?
No, I thought he had done it. I don't know what the days between this incident and the days that he resigned, but I didn't work on his shift, so I didn't know he hadn't followed up and completed the other things.
But my question to you is, you said that what you were upset about is that he arrested Mr. Henson for simple battery, and that you say it wasn't simple battery. So did you pick the case back up and do something with it?
Well, I don't think I was upset. I was just concerned because it wasn't the proper charge.
So because it wasn't proper, did you pick the case back up and do something with it?
No, that's part of the reason why I contacted his supervision and requested that they review it and look at it.
But you have issues with how he handled it, yet you never interviewed any witnesses. You just wrote a report, correct?
I do have issues with how he handled it from reviewing his body footage.
Okay. But not enough to then go interview the parties correctly?
No, had I been on his shift and been working with him on the case, I probably would have. But I don't work with him normally, unfortunately.
It was 100% not her job. So she instructed him to do it. He was supposed to do it. I mean, if I'm at my job and my boss says, hey, go get table 2, I go get table 2. My boss doesn't go out to table 2 in 5 minutes and say, hey, did Kathy get table 2? It's his job. And she's not his direct supervisor. So on his shift, if he didn't do it, then one of the other people on his shift should have done it. And his supervisor should have been the one to make sure that this happened. Not her. It wasn't her job. It just wasn't. She shouldn't have gone and done that.
And I did offer to help with whatever he needed. And I offered the other supervisors on the shift whatever they needed to assist. And I was told it was going to be handled. So I don't know when I found out that other charges were not made. And even at some point when you are told that other charges weren't ever made, if you don't conduct the interviews, you just assume that there wasn't enough probable cause there. I don't know.
Correct. So why did you conduct those interviews to get there?
Because in that moment when I left that night, I thought he had already conducted the interviews because I directed him to do so.
But then you referred him to his supervisors because you didn't like how he handled it. So you knew that he handled it unsatisfactorily. So at that point, you must have known that there was more work to be done.
100% I knew there was more work to be done. The initial contact to the supervisors was because of how it was handled on the first call out that morning, where he was told an act of domestic violence had occurred, and he did not take any action to interview or check or provide medical treatment to anybody on scene after being told that there were injuries.
But the very interviews that you're critiquing him for not doing, nobody else went out and did those interviews at any point.
He was directed to.
Nobody else did though.
He was directed to.
Okay, and I know he was directed to, but did you go back out and follow up, or did anybody follow up to your knowledge?
Judge.
Sustain. Anything else for this witness?
Judge, yes, briefly. So Lieutenant Colette, I think when you initially made contact with Killian and we see him in the back of your car and you kind of discuss him leaning forward a bit.
Yes, ma'am.
You had asked him about some other markings like down lower on his back.
Yes, ma'am.
What did he tell you about those?
That he had stretch marks.
So he corrected you on those?
Yes.
And then did he again talk about his neck and his shoulder where the injuries were from this altercation?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
And then I know, do you know about how old Killian was at this point in time on the body cam?
I think he's 14.
Okay, so if he was 14 then, I know he didn't use the word strangled, but did he maintain to you that he was held by his neck and
Yes.
show you that, how he was held?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
I want to ask you about there's some discussion about how his mom reacted. And she talks about, is he going to go to jail? Is he going to be arrested? Kind of what's going to happen to Mr. Henson. Did she ask you that sort of right as Killian was showing his injuries in the background?
Yes, ma'am.
And I also want to ask you, so you directed Deputy Truslow to do further investigation and take appropriate charges.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you, at some point later on down the road, realize that he did not in fact do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you make any follow-up or contact with the solicitor's office to ensure that that would be done?
Yes, I did, and I was told that the case had been transferred to the district attorney's office.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Mr. Spear, anything else?
So after Deputy Treslow's resignation, did you ever go back out to the residents at Bart Camp Road to take any photographs?
After his resignation, no.
Not her job.
Now, you said that you had a lot of calls with Andrea Givens that morning. Is that correct?
One call, but I worked from the parking lot of where she was, making other phone calls. And
Could you imagine how bad that would get? Okay, if everything was done right, if she told him to go, make sure you interview them, and then he didn't or whatever, and then the person who was supposed to, the other officers on that shift, went out to interview them, all of them, everybody. And then she comes along later and re-interviews everybody. There's no way the stories are going to be the same. Because, I mean, unless you rehearsed your script, you're not going to say the exact same thing about something that just happened. You're going to remember something else. You're going to forget something else. It would be chaos. And then we get into court and he brings everybody up to interview them. And the stories are different. It's like he was standing with his hand on his right hip. Oh no, he was standing on his hand with his left hip. You must be lying. No, they're not lying. So yeah, it wasn't her job to go out there and do that. Thank you, Debbie.
and I would reach back out to her for confirmation of.
Because he mishandled a bunch of cases, but mostly this one. He mishandled this case so bad he was getting reprimanded, went into the office to get reprimanded, okay? This officer on the stand was supposed to come into this meeting while he was getting reprimanded and, give her opinion about what happened with this case. Well, before she had a chance to get in there, he quit. He resigned.
Documents or other things from other agencies that I was asked to confirm with her for the status of her.
And at that point, was she relaying details to you that she was given from presumably Killian?
I recall more from the roommate, the victim,
Okay.
than Killian.
And
It was very confusing, the information, the details that she was asking me about, and me asking about them to Deputy Truslow, and him saying none of that was happening and none of it happened and none of it was true. And she was
saying that he said none of it was true, but he went out there and took a arrest warrant.
hours later, yes, he did, because I sent him back out there.
And like a few hours before this call right here, correct?
At least an hour before I got there with Killian, yeah.
So more so he didn't agree with your version of what happened, but he took a warrant. I mean, you're saying that he just told them all nothing happened, but that's not what happened. He took a warrant, didn't he?
He told me nothing had happened,
Okay.
that there was no domestic dispute originally, that there were no injuries, and that he had checked on Killian, and that Killian did not have any injuries. Killian's mother was adamant for an extended period of time that Killian had injuries, and literally begged me to go check on her son.
At that point, was she telling you that her son had been strangled, or what was she saying?
I don't recall. Hurt, harm, blood involved, an awful bloody incident had occurred at the house where her child was.
And she said she was or was not there.
She never claimed to be there.
Okay.
And then about the awful bloody incident. All right. The victim is saying it was just a little nick. The son is saying there was blood everywhere. Both of those can be true with a head injury. Head injuries bleed like a son of a gun. They just do. Everybody knows that when you get an injury to your head, there's just a lot of blood. It could just be a little nick, but still be a lot of blood. They both can be true.
So you agree she was not getting that information firsthand? She wasn't an eyewitness?
She was not a witness, but someone was clearly giving her details because the person she was on the phone with, which I understood to be the other victim, said that she had met with Truslow by name and that he had taken the investigation incident report originally that morning.
Okay. And then, and you said at that time, Flowery Branch was where you're at, right?
At that time, she resided inside the city limits of Flowery Branch. So she initially reached out to them to ask for someone to go do a welfare check on her child as a result of the incident that had been described to her.
I don't get a lot of pockets in my clothes because I'm a girl, but this is where I keep my tater tots while I'm out and about. I just reach in and grab a tater tot. It's very, very functional.
That it occurred.
And at some point you moved away from Ms. Givens, and that was just to independently interview Killian, correct?
Yes.
And when Miss Givens says, and she interjects around, a few minutes later and says that Killian was strangled, did she ever say that? I guess what I'm wondering is, did he ever say, yes, I was strangled when she said that?
I don't recall. We would have to watch the video.
And the part that we talked about later on when he said that he was pushed against the wall by his father once, at that point, he talked about being pushed against the shoulder blade. He didn't say anything about hands on the neck, does he?
My recollection is that he does say hands on the neck and held up against the wall and forced up against the wall.
Correct, held against the wall.
Violently and threatened to stay out of his business when he assaults the other female, that it's not his.
And we're just here to distinguish legally what these charges are. So I guess my question is, did he say he was strangled?
40.
So he told me that he had force on his neck. The injuries were from his father's hand holding his neck, which is why I directed Deputy Truslow to interview him again and complete a strangulation packet. If he hadn't already done so when he was there before, I didn't know at the time if he had or he hadn't.
That he's presumably now done since the incident, correct?
I don't,
That's true. That's way outside of what the redirect was. I think we've already gone there. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Lieutenant. You can step down. Any reason why the lieutenant can't be excused?
No, Your Honor.
Free to go about your business.
Lieutenant Dan.
State will call Dr. Negroni.
Dr. Negroni.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a restroom break after this witness, if you're wondering. I may be wondering more than you are, but after this witness.
Doctor, if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the court be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, go ahead and lower your hand, have a seat. Will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Dr. Negroni. I'm an emergency physician at Northeast Georgia Medical Center and work at several of their sites, particularly Gainesville and Brazelton.
Okay, and how long have you worked at Northeast Georgia Medical Center, sir?
6 years, since 2019.
And can you tell,
Sorry, this is very important. Anybody who lives in Georgia, is Brazelton a city or just the name of a hospital? Because I've never heard of a courtroom from Brazelton before, and I'm going to find it if you tell me it's a place and not just the hospital.
the jury just briefly what your educational background is, where you got your degrees and things of that nature?
I did my undergraduate degree at Georgia Tech, electrical engineering, did my medical schooling at the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta, and did my residency training in New Jersey, fellowship training in New York City, and then returned to be an attending physician at Emory University in Grady for several years, Atlanta Medical Center after that. And then after a brief interlude for my wife's fellowship in Chicago, joined Northeast Georgia.
Okay, and were you working in the emergency department at Northeast Georgia Medical Center back on April 16th of 2023?
I was.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
And Doctor, you'll just take a look at these, just, at first, just let me know if you recognize what those are.
It's a copy of the medical records for Ms. Schubert.
Is that Lindsay Schubert?
Sorry?
Is that Lindsay Schubert?
Correct.
And Judge, at this point, I move to tender that packet of medical records as states 7, I believe it is.
Yes, ma'am. Stay
That
seven.
is the certified copy. Judge.
Hi, me.
Any
Me
objection?
and
No
Black.
objection.
All right, they're admitted.
And Doctor, I want to ask, were you the doctor that helped treat Miss Lindsay Schubert on that April 16th day where she went to the emergency room?
I was.
And have you had an occasion to review these medical records before court today?
I have.
And I want to direct your attention in Miss Schubert's medical records to page 1. Can you tell me what the initial chief complaint was from Miss Schubert?
Assault victim, hit in the head by a stool last night with possible loss of consciousness.
And what does it say about contusions right there under that?
Diagnoses given: contusion of the scalp, contusion of the face, and contusion of the neck.
And what does contusion mean? What's it a fancy word for?
Bruising.
Okay. And so directing your attention out to page number 5 on her medical records. The top of the page 5 there's a bit of a narrative. Can you read that to the jury, please?
Starting with the word hospitalization.
Please.
Hospitalization was initially considered on this assault victim, who presented with multiple facial contusions as well as contusions of her scalp and neck. However, after evaluation, emergent causes of injury were ruled out, and thus she does not require admission. She can be cleared for discharge.
Okay. And going to the bottom of page 5, top of page 6, can you also read that note to the jury?
Under the subjective where it says patient, okay.
Yes.
Patient is a 37-year-old female with a past medical history of anxiety, depression, and high blood pressure who presents to the ED to be evaluated after being the victim of an assault that occurred last night, after she was struck in the head with a stool and was choked. Patient is currently complaining of a throbbing headache, anterior neck pain, bilateral ear bleeding, and nausea. Questionable loss of consciousness. She denies I think the word should have been any alleviating factors.
Okay.
Patient denies any back pain, abdominal pain, chest pain, shortness of breath, fever, altered mental status, confusion, vomiting, diarrhea, suicidal or homicidal ideation, auditory or visual hallucinations, urinary or excretory symptoms, seizures, or any additional acute symptoms at this time. Surgical history includes a C-section, kidney surgery to remove a mass, and a thyroidectomy.
Okay. And I'm going to put up the top of page 6 there. We're reading from page 5 to page 6 there. And I want to ask you, so she initially reports to the ER and says that she was struck in the head and that she was also choked. Is that a commonly used term for something else as well? When someone says choked?
The only other time we'd use that word is if someone swallowed something and they were gagging on it, but the context is completely different than this.
Okay, and so what are you saying that the context is here?
It's a context of being assaulted, of someone trying to choke you with an intent to harm you.
Versus like choking on food type of situation?
Yep, exactly.
And when she reports about her symptoms, does she talk about the headache that she's still sustaining?
I believe that she mentioned a throbbing headache, yes.
And when she's talking about the bilateral ear bleeding, does that mean like it's actively occurring or it may have occurred at the assault time?
Either or. So it could have been earlier at the assault time.
Okay. And then as well as the neck pain, what is anterior neck pain? Is that front, back? What is that?
Front.
Okay, so front of the neck pain. And then also nausea, is that what's listed?
It is.
Okay. Now, I want to ask.
I'm just going to say, she got on stand and said she was hit on the top of the head because she was attacking him with a broom. Doctor just said she had a cut on her head, both ears bleeding, bruise to her eye, bruise to her front of her throat, the front of her throat, from one hit on the top of the head with a stool.
Ask you to look at page 7 as well. About halfway down through page 7, talking about the physical exam, where it says HENT. Can you briefly explain what's listed in your description under HENT for physical exam?
So what's listed is the findings. She had normal cephalic, just means a normal appearing head. No battle signs would mean there's no bruising behind the ears, which could suggest a skull fracture. But she has a bruise around her left eye, which is concerning possibly for a skull fracture. And she also had bruising to the left sided scalp. So more evidence that she had suffered some sort of trauma.
Now, down where it says neck, what was the commentary after neck?
Under neck, the commentary is swelling to the anterior or the frontal neck.
Okay. And did the emergency room treat or assist her head injury that she had?
We evaluated her head injury to make sure that there was no bleeding inside the brain or any skull fractures by doing a CAT scan of her brain.
Okay. And did that return as normal?
It did return as normal.
Was there any visible like laceration from being struck on the head?
There was no laceration, but there were the bruises that I've mentioned in the physical exam.
Okay.
And listed in the diagnoses.
Okay. And then I just want to look at middle of page 12 there, and it's talking about an update at 1513 at cleaning her scalp. And then does it speak about a laceration to the right side of her head there? About midway down the page on page 12.
So with the bruising, sometimes what can be described by, this is a note by the nurse. Laceration and abrasion are sometimes used interchangeably. There may have been a superficial cut, which you could either describe as an abrasion or laceration, but nothing that was stitched.
Okay.
But yes,
Okay, yeah, I'm just asking, was there a cut of some sort?
there was evidence found by the nurse at that time of a small cut on the scalp.
Okay. And then after she was treated and had the CT scans, was there any other treatment that was done to Ms. Schubert at the ER?
I'm just going to have to refer to my notes to give you a precise answer. I think she was given some ice, and I don't know if she was also given any analgesics. From what I see, she was offered some ice for her bruises, some nausea medicine, and treatment of her nausea, and a pain medicine, Ultram.
Okay. All right, doctor, I believe that's all the questions that I have for you at this time.
Sure. There's some questions I had about the scalp. I believe you said that the injury to the scalp was it about a 2 centimeter cut?
As described by Nurse Hector, yes.
And where was that, on the center of the scalp, the right or the left side?
He notes a lack to the right side of her head.
Now, back on page, I believe, if you could go back to the page 7. And under the head, ear, nose, and throat, you had mentioned something to Miss Jackson about the left orbit and left scalp. What were those two findings?
Bruises to the left eye and left scalp.
Okay. Not the right side where the cut was, though.
No, not at that time.
Okay.
It appears he cleaned the scalp and he found that later.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to any medical findings. At some point, on page 5, you wrote, or somebody wrote, however, after evaluation, emergent causes of injury were ruled out. What does emergent causes of injury mean?
Causes of injury that would need the person to either get surgery in this case, be admitted to the hospital for medical or surgical treatment is what I'm referring to over here.
Okay, so emergent causes, like you don't need to do an emergency procedure.
Correct. Okay. So if they had a brain bleed, then they'd need to see a neurosurgeon and possibly get brain surgery, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this case, you said that there was ice as well as some pain medicine. Was there any stitches or stapling done?
No, there were no stitches or staples done.
Okay. And the, you said that there was nothing remarkable about her head. Was that, what do you mean by nothing remarkable?
Some people are born with, it can mean different things, but for example, some children are born with deformity, so their head shape is misformed. All I'm saying is it's a normal shaped head.
Okay, so basically there's a cut on this head, but it's otherwise.
It's a normal head, it's just been traumatized.
I got you.
Doctor, I'm sorry, but you just lied on the stand because Killian's mother said that she saw the stitches, that they ripped up, that the other woman ripped off the bandage and showed her the stitches. Somebody's lying.
And the, as to any other signs that you may look for in somebody for strangulation, those are things like ligature marks around the center of the neck, correct?
That can be one of them.
Or I guess what are other factors? Would there be like types of breathing, heart rate? What are other ways to look for strangulation?
There are several different types of injuries you'd look for. So one is if the person is breathing irregularly or their oxygen levels are low, you may worry that their throat is being compressed, their air pipe is being compressed. One of the things that we really worry about is the carotid artery that carries blood to the brain could be damaged. And I think I mentioned that I was looking for signs of that, and thankfully she did not have those.
Okay, so she had no signs of strangulation from the night before
That's not correct.
as to the carotid arteries?
There was
High
no
grease
sign of
monkey.
injury to the carotid arteries, but there were signs of possible strangulation. There was bruising to her neck.
Okay. And where's the bruising on the side?
No, it was to the front of the neck.
Okay. Now, during that encounter with her, what's the bruising versus the carotid artery? What is the difference there?
The bruising means that blood vessels under the skin were broken. The carotid artery is a very specific, very important artery that runs on the side of the neck on both sides. There was no signs of injury to the carotid artery specifically, but there were bruises to the front of the neck that showed that there had been trauma to the front of the neck, as could possibly be done by someone trying to choke you.
Okay. Now, was there fingerprints to her neck?
Hold on. I just need to know if someone hit me over the head with a metal or a wooden stool, would that cause bruising to the front of my throat? I think so, because and the stitches and the staples. Come on, you got to get it right.
I did not note any fingerprints.
Okay. With respect to to her vitals and everything else regarding her physical exam, did everything else seem normal?
Her heart rate was slightly elevated, 103.
Okay. Now this was,
Right, because, well, and regular terminology. Because regular terminology, the mother who lied about the staples being shown to her said that the other woman said he really fucked me up this time. So is that medical or legal terminology?
a decent bit outside of the incident, correct? To your understanding, like it had been a good amount of time since the altercation?
Yeah, I think this must have been probably 12 hours. I don't know exactly what time it happened the night before, but it was the next afternoon, so.
Hi, am I?
And you say there was bruising to her front neck. Did y'all document that with any photographs?
Not in this note. I haven't looked at the rest of the medical record, but not in this note.
Okay. Because I guess I know, and can you direct me to the page of your report that you were looking at for the bruising?
The page of the report that notes the bruising is page 7. Swelling to the anterior neck.
And as to sorry. So right here it says, I see the swelling to an anterior neck. Now earlier you talked about contusions versus swelling. What's a contusion versus swelling?
Contusion is bruising, so you see signs of depending on when you look at the person, bleeding under the skin surface. And that's often accompanied by swelling for the same reason, that when blood vessels break, the skin above it swells up. So I've noted that there's clear evidence of bruising to the left eye, to the left scalp, with swelling of her neck.
And so I want to talk about that again. You said earlier that there was bruising to her neck, but would you agree now that it was swelling to her neck, not bruising to her neck?
I would agree that I wrote down the word swelling. And I would also note that in my diagnoses, I believe it's from a contusion, which I've listed on page 4, third diagnosis, contusion of neck, initial encounter.
Now, there's no picture of this contusion, correct?
My physical exam documents what it does.
What?
My physical exam documents that it's there. We don't always take pictures.
Because
So a doctor saying this is what it is not good enough for this lawyer, guys.
at the same time, did y'all do a CT scan?
We did.
And there was no fractures or anything, correct?
There was no skull fracture. There was no brain bleed.
But your report on page 4, if you go to page 4, at some point, your report talks about, does your report talk about skull fractures right there?
What you're looking at is a discussion of whether a CT angiogram of her head and neck is needed to examine her carotid arteries. So that's a different kind of CAT scan. A CT of her brain was done.
What I'm saying though is on page 4, at the bottom where it says ED course, and then next to 1656, and it says differential diagnosis, it says facial contusions, scalpel contusions, abrasions, lacerations, intracranial hemorrhage, skull fractures.
And vascular injury.
Correct. Where did the skull fractures go? You said the CT scan showed no skull fractures?
Correct. So there was a CT of the brain that was done and it showed no skull fractures.
Okay. So why does it say that there were skull fractures here then?
No, sir. Differential diagnosis. That means the list of diagnoses that I'm considering.
Oh, considering, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
That this person could have. When I see a person who has bruises around the eye, bruising of the scalp, I'm worried that they could have skull fractures, that they could have a brain bleed. So that's my differential, the different things I'm considering that person could have.
Okay. Now I see there that, okay, I see that. Now and the CAT scan, I guess that takes place that day. You review everything that day with the patient?
As a matter of practice, I do.
Okay. Now, under her physical exam, I want to make sure I see this correctly as no issues as to her cardiovascular or her pulmonary, correct?
Yeah, that her heart rate at that time was okay. No obvious murmur, that she was not having difficulty breathing at that moment is what I've documented with normal breaths out.
Okay.
Excuse me.
And then when we get to page 8, that's where we see the normal final result, normal CAT scan of the brain.
Bottom of page 8, normal CT of the brain.
And the was anybody at the hospital with Miss Schubert when you were treating her?
In my review of the note, it's unclear to me.
Okay. Now, as to the scan of the brain, is the reason why the scan for the brain is just because obviously that's internal, so something that you can't really see with the eye?
We use a
How about that weather we're having right now?
set of defined criteria.
Okay.
So between the fact that she may have lost consciousness, that the mechanism described would be considered severe if you were hit on the head with a chair, and the fact that she had bruising that suggested a possible skull fracture, I had several reasons to get a CT scan of the brain.
Okay. And the read something real quick.
Don't let him read.
Now, let me ask you about contusions and bruising in general. In terms of where or how somebody bruises, I guess if there's an altercation the night before and two people get into a fight, whether somebody be strangled, somebody be hit or anything like that, what contusions show is that there was something forceful that caused the blood below that skin to bleed, basically, right?
Yes.
In terms of how that blood got there, whether it be through an altercation, holding somebody down, without more, you can't really make that assessment as to exactly what caused the bruise, correct?
No, sometimes and sometimes not. If a person is defending themselves from a knife, you'll see clear marks, usually around the wrists and the hands. So patterns of bruising are actually indicative at times of particular types of trauma. So for example, the front of the neck is a very unusual place to get traumatized. It's even if you fall, you don't usually hurt the front of your neck unless you land directly on it. So anterior neck swelling, trauma, bruising, that raises some concerns because it's not a place, you can get it on your head for any number of reasons. But front of the neck is one that stands out as I read this note.
Okay. And now earlier, well, I guess let me ask you just some understanding. Do you actually recall seeing the bruise on the neck? Or are you relying on your records?
I'm relying on my records.
And would you agree that your records don't indicate exactly where on the neck you saw the mark or how big that mark was or any details about that mark, correct?
It tells me where. It's the front of the neck. How big it is, it does not tell me.
In terms of whether it stretches around the neck or is ligature like that, your report doesn't tell you, does it?
It does not.
But it does. It says that it's on the front of the neck, right? If it was ligature, it would go around the neck. It's on the front of the neck.
Alrighty then. And then let me ask you, was there any follow-up medical visits concerning Ms. Schubert and did you have to treat her again?
No, sir. We don't typically as ER docs. We see them at the time of emergency usually, and then we hand off to family docs and other specialists.
But like sometimes they'll kind of be on the ER notes for follow-up if there's any issues. She didn't have to come back in for complications or something.
Standard practice, anybody who gets worse, we're the safety net. Standard thing is we say, please come back if you get worse and you can't see your doctor or it's an emergency.
Alrighty. I think those are all the questions I have.
Good job, Shapiro. Good job.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, thank you, doctor. You're free to go about your business. Who's your next witness, Ms. Jackson?
Your Honor, at this point in time, the state would rest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that announcement, you've heard all the evidence the state's going to present in their case in chief. That's a great time to take a break. We're going to take a little bit longer break until 10 till 3, so about 20 minutes. But if you'll take a 20-minute recess, you can go outside if you want to and come back in, and we'll get started at 10 till 3. Thank you.
Go in your room first. Lay all this stuff.
Again, it feels like I just started this stream. It feels like we just started this case and it's over. I like this case. I don't know why. I don't know why. But it's over. We're all going to be booped right over to OJ. Some of us might stay. Yesterday's OJ was fan-freaking-tastic. Yesterday's OJ was so good. No. Anyway, how many more days is it? until what? Hold on, let me think. How many more days? How many more days? I don't know what you're talking about. So 3. 3 more days. The trial? Oh, this trial. So it got. I don't know. I'll just see how it goes because I have an extra 30 minutes. So I can either shove that 30 minutes into a 2-hour, and then make OJ late and then, or I could just do the verdict for 30 minutes in one day and just leave us hanging for an extra day, which sucks. I don't know. I have to figure out what I'm going to do. I don't know. You know what? Half the time, neither do I. Yes. I thought you were saying you don't know what I'm talking about. Yep, we get a verdict. We do. Mistrial. No, just kidding. I'm joking. We get a verdict. This is Georgia. This judge doesn't play around. He's like, "Are you ready to go to sentencing, or are you ready for your verdict?" He doesn't play around. It's not like we'll be back in 3 weeks to figure out my decision. No, he already knows. He might already know right now. We do. Yeah, we get a verdict, and I don't know it. So I know we're at least 4 days long, and this is day 2. I know we have 2 more days at least, and then we'll just play it by ear after that. This was a great stream, guys. Thank you so much. I'm gonna start OJ right away. I'm not gonna wait at all because, we have plenty of time. He might have. I'll talk to you guys again really, really, really soon. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Got this life that goes digital dreams through the screen, her blue eyes gleam. Wicked humor, sharp as a knife. Her stream sparks electric light. Late night when the world sleeps, she's the friend that always keeps. Giggles roll like thunder loud. She stands out in any crowd. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom. Eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor, dark and twisted charm. In a way, there's no alarm. Street tales waiting to the night. Her laughter feels just right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle, she lights the way. Her eyes mirror sky so blue. In her jokes, there's a truth so true. With each stream, she brings the light. Turns dark days into bright. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom. Eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor, dark and twisted charm. In a way, there's no alarm. Streaming tales late into the night. Her laughter feels just right. Even when my world turns gray.